How are
Let me,
you?
I am awesome. Let me reintroduce myself in case we're just having this for your audience. I am Mr. Black, and you are listening to or watching the Rebirth Summit 2025 Stories of Unyielding Courage. They call me Mr. Black. I'm the host of Like It Matters Radio, where I help people maximize the potentials they were created with. I'm also CEO of Like It Matters Leadership Training for over 32, almost 33 years. I've led transformational leadership training across three countries, helping tens of thousands to live with purpose. I'm a certified human behavioral specialist, a master practitioner of NLP. I have a working knowledge of transactional analysis, cognitive behavioral therapy, and emotional intelligence. As an ordained minister, I'm also passionate about prison ministry. I go inside the prisons a couple days a week with Kairos Prison Ministry and often with Prison Fellowship. I've authored several books I love to write, including 180 Ways to Live Your Life Like It Matters and Becoming Your Dreams, Want It, Create It, Live It. Whether in the classroom or behind a microphone or working one on one, my mission is always the same: to empower others to live life like it matters. And I'm honored to be selected as an interviewer for incredible people and this incredible woman, Amy, that you're going to get a chance to meet. So let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Amy Pease is the founder of Passion from Pain. What a great title. And a 15-year survivor of manipulation and mental abuse. As a coach, mentor, content creator, keynote speaker, podcaster, and YouTuber, Amy empowers others to break free from toxic cycles and reclaim their power with raw honesty and real world strategies. Raised in a manipulative and mentally abusive adoptive family and navigating life as a single mom to a son diagnosed with autism, Amy refused to let her circumstances define her. After nearly 2 decades of deep research in manipulation, dark psychology, human behavior, healing trauma, and ancient warfare strategies, she now equips others with the tools to transform pain into purpose. How beautiful. Retiring from the grind at just 44, Amy dedicated her life to helping others rise after trauma. Her no fluff, straight to the heart approach cuts through the noise to help survivors reconnect with their strength, discover self love, and build a future free from toxicity and mental games. Amy Pease doesn't just talk healing, she lives it. Her story is one of grit, growth, and fierce transformation. Today, she stands as a bold voice for those ready to rise above their pain and finally pursue the life they were meant to live. Wow. Oof, gives me chills. How are you doing today, Amy?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Now, unfortunately, we only got 15 minutes to hear how incredible Amy is.
It's all right.
Let's get right to it. So let's start at the beginning, right? In the beginning. Tell me the beginning that created the foundation for why we're talking today.
Absolutely. So when I was very, very young, like 3 months old, I was adopted away from a neglectful mother into my forever family, which ended up being very dysfunctional, a lot of issues. And I grew up in extreme poverty with this family. And very lazy family as well. They refused to work, lived off of the systems, and they were very capable adults and were very much able to work. But because of their mindset and
Yeah.
whatnot, I was put to work by the age of 11 to help feed the family. So I was working full time while going to school. And so I didn't get to have a normal childhood. And I grew up thinking that this was very normal. This is just kind of what you did, right? This is kind of what I was taught. And I lived that life, throughout my childhood. Didn't have much of an adolescence. I worked full time through my teenage years as well. Again, supporting a family, very capable adults, just refused to do the things that they needed to do. But I was told this was love. You stick with your family, and that's what this is. And throughout that whole time, I didn't know any different. But I had a lot of issues going on: depression, anxiety, all coming down on me, but I didn't realize that it was because I wasn't living the life I was supposed to be living as a child. And so I took on the depression, took on the anxiety, took on these real world adult issues as a kid. And it was very heartbreaking, and just not knowing any better. I went to mental health providers and sought answers through them. through pills and through conversations with therapists, thinking there was something wrong with me the whole time. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I was about 25 years old, and at 25, I'm still supporting these people, mind
Yeah.
you, including a brother of mine who was very much taking advantage of me as well. And at this point, I was a single mother of a son who was diagnosed with autism. So
So
I
you already
was
had a
supporting
child.
him.
You already had a child of your own
I
and
did.
autism. And you know why the Bible says raise up a child in the way they should go and then never depart. But more importantly, for you, Alfred Adler, famous psychologist, says by the time a child is 5 years old, a majority of their map reality is in place.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we do or do not do is driven by belief system. And no one ever rechecks their belief system. So what you were doing, you were running the program of the belief system you put in place to live through that hell, to get through that terrible environment you were in. But as you got on your own now, you had to go back and restructure those belief systems. And that's what you were doing. You were They're neural pathways. And so
Yep.
you were just doing what was done to you, but something changed. It was
Yep.
that line in the sand. The pain got so great. That's what rock bottom is. People always want to know what rock bottom is.
Yep.
Rock bottom is when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. And the pain got so great. What caused you to change, Amy? What was the difference?
So I was at work one day, and I get a phone call. They're going to repossess my car because I couldn't make the car payment. My lights had been turned off. My mother had called me. I had $80 in the bank account, 2 weeks to get paid, and rent was due in a month. I had a major panic attack at work. And the last thing that needed to happen for me was to get sent home, but my boss sent me home because I was just no good to him that day. And so I went straight to an urgent care, seeking some Xanax. I needed to calm myself down so I could strategize and figure out what the hell I was going to do now. But I got into that appointment and saw a doctor I'd never seen before. Is within the same system that my mental health provider was. And he looked at my chart and he asked me everything that was going on. He'd seen all the different medications I'd tried, all the therapy programs I'd been in. Nothing's working. I'm right here. He's like, what the hell's going on? Something should be helping you by now. And so I told him, and he's the one who basically put it all into perspective for me and pointed out the manipulation, pointed out the abuse, the mental abuse, the financial abuse, everything that I had been, succumbed to at this point that I didn't understand. He said, Xanax isn't going to help you. The Prozac isn't going to help you. You don't have a chemical imbalance. You have a situational problem. And until you change your situation, nothing's going to change. These pills are not going to help you. So I can give it
And
to
so,
you. You can calm
yeah.
down, but you're going to be here tomorrow looking for the same damn thing.
What changed is when someone finally said, no more self medication.
Yep. No more
That's what
self
it changed.
medication. Yep.
See, people always ask, why does God allow pain? Well, pain's a great motivator.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we reduce the pain. We self medicate through pills, through porn, through whatever. And we never experience the pain that God wants to move us off the road. It's a prod. Why are you kicking against the goats, Paul? It's a prod. And so you finally, someone looked you enough in the eyes and cared enough about you. They said, nah,
Yep.
no more self. And what you probably realized is this had to do with your identity, didn't it?
Yep. Oh yeah.
This You had to
Absolutely.
go to the identity. So what was that transformation like? Because when you realized that's not who you are, that's what was done to you. Who is Amy? That's where the transformation. Tell us about that transformation.
That took, goodness, about 15 years for me to get through,
Wow.
because what I didn't understand was, yeah, I had the courage to tell everybody to just, you all can just go away and go to hell. And I cut them all off, right? And went out on my own with my son so that I could raise him properly so he didn't have to experience the same thing that I did. Because God forbid, if something happened to me, those people were going to raise him and he was going to go through the same thing. And so my biggest worry was him at that point, of course. And so, and in leaving, what I wasn't prepared for was the aftermath of leaving a toxic situation. I still had to deal with myself, and I had to deal with all the toxic programming that had happened to me. And it took me about 15 years to get through that. At this point, I had lost my insurance, so I had no access to any kind of mental health therapy or anything like that. I was taken off of all of my medications, which was great, but I still had to deal with myself and everything that was going on. So what I ended up doing was deep diving into research and researching psychology, dark psychology, manipulation, especially. I had to understand how and why this all happened to me so I could prevent it in the future. I understood that not everybody was like this, but I had major trust issues coming out of this. And I had to rewire all of that in my brain. And I had to do it myself. And I did
Yeah.
it through self education and
Yeah.
through going through the process and understanding my pain and understanding that the pain and the anger and the disgust that I was feeling was actually a wonderful tool to propel me into what I really want to do, which is helping other people who have been through a toxic situation overcome themselves afterwards. We don't talk about that enough. We talk about leaving the situation and okay, good, you're gone. We don't talk about how to get over yourself because you have so much to deal with in the
Yeah.
aftermath. You know, why
Yeah.
did we fall for all this nonsense to begin with? Is because we had major issues to begin with.
But
Uh,
you got to get beyond the guilt and shame,
yep.
right? You got to get beyond the guilt and shame because we start owning it, and it's your identity. Dr. Viktor Frankl said, between the stimulus and the response, there's a space,
Yep.
and in that space is our power and our freedom. And what you chose is you chose to take back your power. You chose back to and realize, okay, I'm going to have to control. And your story is so incredible because I did the same thing. My wife said this to me one day. She goes, "Honey, you know what you did? You became what you needed when you were younger. Amy, you became what you needed when
Mm-hmm.
you were. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, it
You
is. It's
said,
great.
and that's why I even say that. And you light up, you smile because you're now the person that you wish you would have had when you were younger. Because people said nice things about you, and then they sent you back to that hellhole that you were living in. And
Yep.
you're like, doesn't anybody see me? Don't I matter? And you had to go back to your identity. God had to bring you down and say, "You're my child. You have value." And
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're doing with other people. Let me ask you, I know that doctor was important because he stopped
Sure.
giving you self-medication, but who else has been instrumental in your journey? Have there been other people, other situations?
You
What do you
know,
think?
I self isolated a lot during this time, and so it was a lot of just me sitting with my soul, my spirit, and with God, and trying to understand everything that had happened, and understand where I can go from here with it, and why this all happened. So understanding why it all happened was a big deal for me for some reason. And once I got to the heart of why it all happened, I could break through everything and then finally use it all as a tool to really get to where I wanted to be.
And
But that's
amen.
just the way my brain
Yeah,
ended up working. I had to
yeah.
understand the nuts and bolts of everything.
And you know why it happened? Because Genesis 3. I
Yeah.
always tell people, why? Go to Genesis 3 because
Yeah.
we messed up. That's
Yeah.
why we brought in a lot of bad stuff that our daddy never actually intended.
Yep.
Beautiful story. Let me ask you something. Where are you now in the journey? Where are you now in your journey?
Yeah, so now I am, I'm in a marriage of 19 years. I've and three kids now, and instead of just one. And now I'm taking my story and everything that I've learned about overcoming the toxicity and the pain, and then how to use that pain and that anger and disgust, and how to use that as a tool to really propel you to where you really want to go, because it is a tool.
Yeah.
We often want to suppress the anger, suppress the rage that we feel for the things that have been done to us. But when we process it properly and we use it properly, it can be the most motivational thing that can move you forward better than anything else. I mean, really, that
Well, you
idea of I will
yeah,
not let this happen
yeah.
again.
Well, you hit it right on the nose. You've processed your pain.
Yes.
See, a lot of people, they say they process their pain, but they're like this spiritual octopus that has to keep everything at bay. And I
Yep.
always say, if you process it, why are you still keeping it at bay?
Mm-hmm.
And see, how can we help other people in their pain, Amy? You figure this out. If we haven't dealt with our own pain,
Yes.
because as we get close to someone else's pain, if we haven't processed our own, it hurts too much. We make it about us. And I always like to tell people rule number one about being a leader, it ain't about you. Get off yourself. It's about how you can be used to help other people. And Amy, you're such an incredible. My wife is in the room; she has tears in her eyes.
Oh.
Listen to you talk. And Amy, you got to know, I talk to thousands of people on a regular basis. You have a beautiful story, and the way you tell it is so powerful that people are drawn to you. And
Okay.
God's using all the pain you went through, all the stuff he never wanted to happen, but did because he gives us free will. He is so pleased with you, so pleased with you. And now I want to ask you, because this wasn't about you, right? God helped you grow so that you can help other people. God asked me one time, he said, Black, are you ready to take all that pain that you've been through and use it to help others? And when I was ready to say, yes, daddy, Abba, daddy, yes, I will, he said, now you're ready for what I created you for. And Amy, undoubtedly, now you're ready for what
Mhm.
God created you for. So here's the question. How
Yep.
are you using your experience to help other people? Because it's naturally get bitter about what was done to us, but how are you helping them become better?
So I'm helping them to understand again that pain is something that you've got to go through and you've got to work through and you've got to face it. You've got to face those demons. You can't just put them in a closet. You can't just turn your back to it. You have to face that stuff. And that's what I help people do, is to face that pain, understand those emotions, learn how to sit with those emotions without it completely tearing you apart and bringing you back down, and having the strength to just ultimately stand back up despite everything that you've been through. And one thing that we do go through with the people that I coach is something called the strength method, and that is how to stand back up and how to re-engage your soul. Abusers, they disconnect us from that part of us. So how do we re-engage that? How do we start listening to our gut and our intuition again? How do
Yeah.
we identify who we are? How do we fall in love with who we are, right? And oftentimes that's reasons that we fell for all the abuse to begin with. It's because we
Yeah.
didn't know who we were, we didn't love who we
Yeah.
were, and we didn't understand, on a higher level what our plan and purpose was.
Oh,
But
that's
that
so
keeps
beautiful.
going into it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And what you have is a message that has emotion, it has sincerity, it has authenticity. And you're right, God will use everything if we're willing. God doesn't need any of us. Are we willing and are we available? And you've chosen to take your pain and you process it yourself to become better for others. And that is absolutely awesome. Anything, we've got about 30 seconds left. Anything you're working on right now that you want the listeners to know about?
For sure. I have a podcast, and actually, I featured a lot of speakers here on my podcast already. So we do talk about toxicity and overcoming it. And then also, I've got a book that's going to be coming out called Finding Strength After Toxicity. That is the full method and the full plan of how I did it over 15 years. And so I'm
Awesome.
writing the roadmap
Yeah.
and giving everybody, the key to getting it done and moving
Amen.
on.
And there's a great saying that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with what? A footstep
Yep.
and a roadmap. And
Yep.
you've got the roadmap. And so,
Yes.
really, really happy for you and really pleased. And today, we've been talking with Amy. And Amy, you are such a blessing. And so, thank you for sharing your heart, your powerful story, for putting my wife in tears. Your journey is a beacon for hope. God bless you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, this has been another incredible conversation from the Rebirth Summit 2025, Stories of Unyielding Courage. I'm Scott B. Black, and it's been an honor to host this interview with Amy.